Okay, we're a couple minutes past 11:45, and we want to give as much time as possible to today's conversation. Welcome everybody to the first of our sustainability lunch series for the spring semester. I'm Jen Graham, Senior Associate Director of the MIT Sloan Sustainability Initiative, and welcome. Before I hand things over to our two student moderators, I just have one very quick announcement. Next week, I am presenting a lunch series all about sustainability internships. So if you're a first-year MBA, you're in the thick of it for internship recruiting, come join us. I'm going to talk about a couple of programs that we offer. You're going to hear firsthand from a few second-year students. It's up on Sloan Group, so you can either scan the QR code here or RSVP there. Without further ado, I'm going to hand the floor over to our two student moderators, Becca and Michelle. Thank you so much for joining us, for collaborating, and I'm going to hand it over to you.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining for this really, really exciting event. We're so pleased to have Sean McDowell here from MillerKnoll. Is this my first time? You can hear me, let me know. Okay, cool. I wanted to start with some introductions. My name is Michelle King. I'm a first year student at MIT Sloan. And yeah, my involvement at Design Club is the partnerships officer and finance officer, but primarily focused within the climate and sustainability industry.
Hey everyone, I see lots of familiar faces. I'm Becca, second year MBA candidate here at Sloan and the co-president of the Design Club, along with Marissa, who's in the front row here. Hey, Marissa. And if you don't know what the Design Club is, but I am guessing a lot of you probably do, hopefully do, we're here to empower students to use design thinking to solve problems, create solutions, create collaborative teams. And so far this year, we've done lots of programming and there's lots more to come. So keep your eyes peeled on Sloan Groups and in our WhatsApp chat. We've done workshops on visual design, on user research, even on the space design and artwork on this campus here. And today we're really excited that we get to bring our way of holistic and creative thinking to designing for sustainability and inclusion. So with that, I'm super honored and excited to introduce Sean McDowell. So forgive me, I'm going to read off the page here because Sean has a lot of accolades to go through here. Sean has spent over 2 decades at the intersection of design, innovation, and sustainability, most recently as Senior Vice President of Innovation and Sustainability at MillerKnoll. Previously, he's contributed to a wide range of initiatives at Nike, including footwear design, the Olympic effort, and leadership of Nike running. His work, which includes over 56 design and utility patents, has been recognized globally with pieces featured at MoMA and the Smithsonian. Pretty good. At MillerKnoll, Sean draws on his experience to help drive the company's focus on sustainable materials, hybrid work solutions, and new business opportunities. His approach is always centered on creating thoughtful, consumer-driven and products that make a positive impact. And one more note, he just recently completed the Michigan Ironman 70.3. So Renaissance man. Welcome, Sean.
Yeah, such a thrill to be here with you today. So thank you for taking the time. Sloan's one of my favorite schools in the world. I lived just up the street in Winchester for a very long time. So it's nice to come down here and see all of you. So thanks for taking the time.
We'd love to just turn it over to you for a bit to talk through an overview of MillerKnoll and give us a little better intro of yourself.
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, you did a really nice job on the intro, so I don't need to go too far into any of that background. But for those that don't know MillerKnoll, it's a collaboration of 15 different brands. You've probably seen some of this furniture. It's some of the most iconic. We're one of the largest furniture manufacturers in the world for home office, but also for a lot of contract work and businesses. We're over 100-year-old company, so it's really nice to be part of a brand that's been established for quite some time. You know, there's good DNA and good roots there that we can tap into. 15 brands, as I mentioned, over 10,000 employees. I get to work with all of these brands, both doing sustainability and doing innovation. And that's a really nice combination for me because there's times that I can lean into all 15 brands and we can like negotiate for like the best price on a new low carbon polymer. But then there's other times that we can move quickly and grab like a smaller brand that wants to move fast. First off, I also want to say hi to anybody who's dialing in up on the camera. You know, I know sometimes in these hybrid environments, it gets really tough. We wind up dominating on the live people here, but thanks to anybody who's dialing in. You may know this, but we've got a lot of connections between MIT and with the MillerKnoll brand. Eero Saarinen, one of our famous architects and designers working with us for many, many years, was also did the Kresge Auditorium here. So you see the tulip chairs and tables over to the left, and then the Kresge Theater over to the right. And the same is true for Harry Bertoa. He worked on the MIT Chapel, which I think this is just a gorgeous piece, by the way, like very iconic, very rare to sort of see this, but it's very reflective for me, I would say, where you sort of see it and it feels like your prayers are going up into the heavens. I mean, it's a pretty nice piece. This is me. I've got 3 kids about your age. So I've got a 22-year-old, a 20-year-old, and an 18-year-old. I've been at MillerKnoll, as we said, for 2.5 years, 22 years at Nike, so a bulk of my career is there. If you guys have questions as we're going through, feel free to like raise your hand, or if you're online and chat, you can ask questions as well. And we also have a little bit of time kind of baked into the end.
Thanks so much for that, Sean. That was a wonderful overview. I want to start off our questions by talking about user-centered design. Broadly, what does designing for a user mean to you? And it doesn't have to be just limited to your time at MillerKnoll. And how has that mindset informed your journey as a designer and also as an innovator throughout your career?
Yeah, no, I think that's great. And I think this slide in some ways does a nice job. You've probably seen similar slides to this if you've worked in product creation or you're studying product creation, right? I do think that step number 1 is one of the most important steps. And I do think that people skip over this quite regularly. But if you can understand the consumer and really empathize with them, you can really make good progress. For me, I would say I really honed these skills when I was working on the Olympic Games for Nike. I had to work on all 28 sports, but I didn't know all 28 sports. So it was an opportunity to go out and meet with equestrian riders and see like, how can I help make products for you to win a gold medal? And then the next week it's weightlifters. And the next week after that, it was fencers. And the next week after that, it was Kobe Bryant and working on his basketball shoe. And you're trying to balance all of these things out and really deeply understand what they're looking for. And there's like no better brief in the world than just help people win gold medals. And so if you're working on product creation, try and have that same sort of obsession with your customer. Then getting a really clear target, that define stage becomes very important, especially as you're working with different teams. Teams can all have different opinions and different points of view, but if you can paint a laser target for them, it makes a world of difference. I always say that if the target is moving, it's really difficult for you to hit that moving target. Come up with ideations, build prototypes, test and learn. These are some of the most important things that you can do. Again, I think sometimes people go to solution very quickly. I also like this repeat step 2 of sometimes we go through the process once and you're like, okay, I'm done, I did it. If you can take some time and like reevaluate things and pressure test yourself and ask the hard questions, is it exactly where we need it to be? You can actually get in a really nice product creation loop and create something better than has ever been created before.
Easier said than done.
Right. Yeah. It's really nice and easy on a chart.
Going one step further beyond just user-centered design, let's talk about inclusive design. Inclusive design builds on the principles of user-centered design and challenges designers to create accessibility for all types of users, especially those who are typically on the margin of mainstream design. How has this philosophy influenced your work and at MillerKnoll?
Yeah, I think the margins actually helps us tremendously, and I think when I was in school, the OXO Good Grips was like sort of like the most common thing. If you haven't seen these, they were actually originally designed for people with arthritis. But you see them now, they're like a big black handle with little grooves on them, and it's a potato peeler was like the original design. guess what? It wound up working for everybody. It was really good for arthritic patients, but it wound up working for everyone. I feel like we can come up with better ideas on the margins, sharper targets that then lead to really good insights and ideas. And we might have a couple of good examples here. I would say from a research study perspective right now, we're very interested in neurodivergence. So there's a whole spectrum of us, you know, and we're all coming with different kind of ability levels and preferences. But if we can start building in more flexibility, where people are able to kind of control their situation. Lots of times people are like, I would love to control the lighting, or I would love to control the sound, or I don't want as many distractions in my world. That works for everybody. We've got a Bay work pod, which actually really took this to heart. This is a new product offering at MillerKnoll. Traditional phone booths really weren't working that well in a lot of ways. There might even be like a little bit of a video here that might be able to play. This is the Bay work pod from up above. You can see there's actually quite a bit of space in here, but you're able to get that focus time that you're really looking for. You can, you know, it's tackable space. You can charge your phone. There's like really nice power solutions there. You can spin a top if you really need to. But think about most of the phone booths, you can't spin an ergonomic chair. This also works for ADA. So a wheelchair can get into this space. It's flush with the ground. And maybe you saw in there quickly, you're able to dial the lighting in there as well. So if you're taking a Zoom call, you can dial in that lighting to actually make you feel comfortable. When you're feeling comfortable, when you're feeling good, you have really good conversations with your friends remotely. So by focusing on some of those aspects, by keeping it really flush and making it spacious for a wheelchair to get in, it actually wound up making it better for everyone.
It's amazing. So, I mean, I think if we already didn't know it, we definitely know now. Herman Miller is really dedicated to designing for users functionality, form, aesthetics, but also well known for sustainable design. There's a very popular class here called Product Design and Development, and they look to Herman Miller for a case, an example of an early adopter of sustainable design. So I'd just love to hear a little more about how you layer sustainability on as a priority after already needing to meet so many requirements and specs to serve your users. And, you know, what's the journey that MillerKnoll has been on? Where are we now?
Yeah, I would say it's baked into the DNA, which is kind of nice. So I mentioned that I worked at Nike. Nike does care a lot about sustainability, but I also consulted in between Nike and MillerKnoll for about 4 years. And so I worked with a lot of different groups, a lot of different industries. Not everyone is as inspired by sustainability as maybe this group right here, right? You get a lot of CEOs make assumptions like, oh, of course, sustainability has to cost more, or of course I have to get the product done and then try to be sustainable. It's way better to just do it from the beginning. And that's what I love about your generation is it is baked into your DNA. You think about the future and more globally than a lot of previous generations. So kudos to you for doing that. Yeah, maybe we'll take a couple of minutes. There's a really nice video that I think is a positioning statement for us. This is really only about a week old. This is our Better World report, and there's some really good sort of setup for our positioning.
All the way back in the 1950s, DJ Dupree was making commitments to being good stewards of the planet. Maybe at its simplest, the Better World report is our report card to the world at large, which serves up how we're doing against our ambition to make the world a better place. Underneath what's detectable with I, every particle's vibrating with the same light.
You can meet standards that are just about doing no harm, but you can also take it a step further. You can lead. We can show people that are making product like ours that they actually could make it in a different way and still be profitable.
We've got clear vision on where we want to be by the year 2050. Innovation is a key part of our sustainability attributes. The problems we are trying to solve require us to develop new materials and new technologies.
The important part of our strategy is continual improvement, taking every product that we have in our portfolio and making it better.
No compromises. We will not give on durability, quality, longevity of the product. We will take the product through the same rigorous testing that it went through the first time it was developed.
Our mission at MillerKnoll is to foster a culture of highly engaged associates where everyone belongs. We want to make sure that employees know that wherever they want to contribute in the world, they get to.
I mean, the legacy of this brand is giving back, to be a force for good in communities around the world.
If your filter and your compass and your value system is built on something like that, then the product that comes to life is often going to bring more joy.
We don't exist just to sell furniture. We design for the good of humankind, and we truly believe that.
We design beautiful furniture. We have for years. We have an amazing collective of brands, but we do a lot more than that. And it's how we do it that matters. And it's the impact that we think about that matters.
The light bulb really goes on when you have those kids and you start thinking about, am I leaving a better world for them? And that's driving a lot of our decisions.
So I love this phrase that we've been using at MillerKnoll, which is to leave the earth better than we found it. I don't know, maybe some of you, your mom was like my mom. She said, you go over to a friend's house, make sure you clean up, put your dishes away, put the toys away, you know, and then come back home. Leave the house better than you found it. And what a nice mantra it would be for corporations to have this same type of mentality. Could we essentially not have any carbon footprint and leave the world in a better place? So we take climate change very, very seriously. It is part of our DNA. We've been industry leaders for decades, whether it is designed for circularity, designed for disassembly, using ocean-bound plastics, using safe chemistry. It's just been sort of part of what we've done. And we work with research centers all over the world to sort of identify any new hotspots or problem areas, and we try and weed it out before it becomes an issue. I think this may be a really good visual for us to sort of think about, but this is what we look at from a MillerKnoll perspective. We know that everything matters in the entire product creation life cycle. If you start sort of at 12 o'clock, building long-lasting, durable, beautiful products, that's probably the best thing that we can do. A lot of us, especially students, have some of those products that completely fall apart, like 1 year when you're moving from one apartment to the other apartment. That's like the worst thing that you can do from a sustainability perspective. You know, just having this disposable products, it just winds up ending up in landfill. I love my kids, and maybe some of you are in this same boat too, where you're doing more thrifting, where you can go to a store and you can find really good quality pieces. So those durable products, that's sort of at the center of what we do. Now, we're starting to switch to use more natural, more renewable, more sustainable materials. We've done that for a while, but like we're doing a supercharged effort on that. We're leaders in safe chemistry, so that will continue. We conserve the amount of water. We eliminate waste kind of across the board, and that starts to get you to low carbon products. Then we've been making those products in local centers. So 85% of what we manufacture is in the United States. But for Western Europe, it's in Western Europe, and Asia Pacific, it's Asia Pacific. So we don't have these huge logistic chains where we're burning a lot of fossil fuels, getting a product to your house. So really beneficial. We've been really smart with our packaging. We've been able to eliminate single-use plastics, styrofoam, bubble wraps, a lot of things that create problems and issues for you when you're done. You receive that package, and then you've got like this mound of packaging that you got to like unload somehow or try and recycle, and styrofoam you can't recycle. This is one of those feel-good stories too. We made better packaging. Our delivery, on-time delivery and defective products went down. So like we got more successful products to their home. And we were able to save $500,000 just in smart packaging, just basically corrugating cardboard, folding it like origami to protect those products. We use renewable energy. We're moving towards biofuels and electric logistics to get our products to their destination. And we have a new supercharged repurpose program where we will take any product back at the end of its life. We'll evaluate it. We'll put it through a 10-point inspection. We'll do an industrial cleaning on it. And probably there's a second life there. We can give it to someone else and they can have another 5 years, 10 years, 20 years with that product. We've created a lot of heirlooms that way, and just a little bit of care and maintenance means you don't have to throw that product out. We love our products so much, we don't ever want to see them end up in landfill. And then if it's truly at the end of its life, we'll design it for disassembly, we'll put it into its recycling streams, and we'll make a whole new product out of it. This is another good way for us to track our carbon footprint and our impact on the planet. We set some really good long-term North Star goals, and I think this is also really important as you start to go out into the world. Having that combination of long-term goals and short-term goals really helps you make progress. I've seen too many teams where they make these little short-term decisions, especially if it's like, oh, well, Wall Street wanted me to drive the stock price up for the next month, so I make a decision that helps Wall Street, that you sort of take your eye off the ball long-term. So some of those are designed to make the world's best products in the most sustainable way. For carbon, it is to design the lowest carbon footprint products. And we've made an announcement to be aligned with the Paris Accord, which is we're committed to net zero by 2050. We'll use those safe, sustainable, 100% bio-based and recycled materials. So we're going to not use fossil fuels in the way that we have in the past. Typically, you have to go in, extract that from the earth, and make plastics and polymers and foams. We're growing our materials now. So we're making plastics out of ethanol, which comes from corn. We're making foam that comes from biosources like soybeans and from castor beans. And we're putting it through those same testing standards. So it still has to match a 12-year warranty. We don't want to make any compromises when it comes to the product. And then the products are designed for circularity. You might see this exploded view. It's a sort of new product for us. It's the Pippin chair that's been assembled with no adhesives and no fixtures. So it's designed for disassembly. It can be reconfigured very, very quickly. So we'll design timeless, durable products with zero waste by 2050. So those long-term goals really help us. And then we've set 12, I think, of the most ambitious goals on short-term goals. So things about safe chemistry or the amount of recycled materials that we're going to use just to keep us on track.
So cool. I have so many follow-up questions, but I think we'll just click into one for now. I mean, that's on the materials innovation you all are doing, particularly, bio-based innovations, but others as well. Just curious if you can give us some examples of what those materials are, how you're applying them, but then also a little flavor for what that development cycle looks like. How are you engaging innovators and bringing them up to scale?
Yeah, I think that's awesome. Yeah. So we're putting all of our most important products on a carbon diet. We've made the pledge and commitment. The top 100 products, we're going to measure the life cycle assessment for all of them, and then we're going to reduce them by at least 25%. In some cases, it's going to be 50%. So this is hundreds and hundreds of products. The most popular products, our best sellers, have to go through a diet. This one that I'm sitting in today is the Mira 2 chair. This is like a really, really good example. So this was originally introduced in 2003. It was designed by Studio 7.5, one of our best designers in the world. They're based out of Germany. Great product, but we're always working on continuous improvement. So it's excellent. It's known for its ergonomics. It's really extraordinarily comfortable. We ask you after this, feel free to come up, sit in it, and give us your feedback. It's one of the most popular chairs in the world. We've been able to lightweight it over the last 20 years. So sometimes we take that tilting mechanism and we've just used new mechanical engineering principles to make it lighter, right? Same strength, same kind of features and benefits, but we learn as we go, right? And things get better. We've also introduced 100% recycled plastics. So these are post-consumer recycled plastics, both for the spine and the base. That's all been done. So with all of those combinations, we've taken 30% reductions in carbon footprint. This is now the lowest carbon footprint performance task chair in the world at 64 kilograms of carbon. So feeling really proud about where this is landing. And there might be a couple of more examples too. The caper chair, which you see a ton in higher education, you might see these around. These are really nice stackable chairs, really accessible price point. This has switched to 100% recycled content. We've invented a new bamboo leather. So leather comes from cows. A lot of you know cows produce a lot of methane. Methane is a really heavy chemical or composite that goes up and burns a hole in the ozone layer. So having vegan alternatives is really good for our portfolio. So 85% of this content comes from bamboo. It is lighter, it is stronger, it's easier to clean. It comes in a 54-inch roll, so it's very consistent, it's very easy for us to use and get a higher yield from that product. You were asking about like some of these combinations. This is one of those nice situations where I had a friend who was working at Tesla and had this as part of their innovation pipeline. We were able to leverage some of their work, and we made a version of our own with the same supplier. And so sometimes it's like partnerships. Other times it's a research center. So it could be MIT Sloan that we would work with. This is one of those examples where we're working with a company in Europe to use more bio-based foams. So most cushions are made out of polyurethane. So the chairs that you guys are all sitting in, polyurethane cushions, comes from fossil fuels. We've switched that now to more organic, more bio-based materials, like I'd mentioned, castor beans and soybeans. This is a really fun story. So these are acoustic tiles that drop down from the ceiling, made from a natural material. It's called eelgrass. For those that are not familiar with eelgrass, it is a natural material that grows typically in Denmark and the Nordic region. It's similar to the fall in Boston where the leaves fall off the tree, right? The eelgrass dies in the fall and it washes up on shore. And so for hundreds of years, the Danes have been scooping it up and using it as a roofing material, right? Really strong, great thatching material so that can give you rain protection. We've been able to learn from the past, right? I think this is some of those fun things too. It's just go back into history and see what have we done as a human species that has worked in the past, and maybe we can dust that off and do it again. So we've taken a bio-based composite. We've been able to press those into boards. My favorite part of the story is because eelgrass lives in salt water its entire life, this is flame retardant. So it passes all of our flame retardant standards, Class A standards, all without any additional chemistry. We're taking all of our textiles and we're flipping them over to high recycled content. So this was one of those where we went down to the threads and the yarns, so the building blocks of all of our textiles, and we're able to make those out of recycled content and get it at a very good price. This is where like all 15 brands of MillerKnoll coming together with a little bit of weight and saying, we need you to get this really good price for us, and then we'll use it across the board. We've already been able to take 42 of our most popular textiles, flip them to between 75% and 100% recycled content. No change in price, no change in quality, no change in texture or color. We just changed the building block, and that made it more sustainable for everything. Yeah.
So we've talked about your successful innovations and your experimentation process. This is not on. Could we talk a little bit about what failure looks like as part of that journey and how you deal with failures?
Yeah, not always the easiest topic to talk about, right? But probably one of the most important topics that we can talk about. I do think that it is okay to fail, and it's okay to fail fast, and that can kind of be part of the process. If you learn it early, then you can correct any mistakes. I will share an example with you where we did not learn that lesson, and it is kind of a bummer. And this is not the easiest topic for me to talk about in front of a group, but I think we can talk about it. So when I was at Nike, I worked on one of the original Nike Plus chips. You sort of see this right here in the middle. Nike Plus chip had a GPS locator and an accelerometer, so it would tell you how far and how fast you ran. So it worked very well for Nike running. So the logical kind of solution is, well, let's bring it over to basketball, right? And maybe let's launch this at the 2012 Olympics maybe we'll take LeBron James and Kobe Bryant and Dwayne Wade and we'll put them in this product. And you at home could sort of track their progress on court. How many minutes did they play? How far did they jump? How hard and how fast did they run? It's starting to sound like a pretty cool idea, right? So we worked our tails off on this part of the concept, right? And if you think in the back of your head, that chart that I showed earlier, sort of on product creation, you'll maybe see some of the failures that we took along the journey, right? The athletes were not accessible at the beginning to talk to. Do you want to do this? Is this something that is compelling for you? We skipped that part because they're busy, right? They're LeBron James. You don't always get access to his calendar, right? So we work hard on this technology. Now, we're getting close to the deadline, right? It's the Olympic Games. It's 2012. Like, you got to rush to the finish line. There's no like pushing this out, right? So that becomes one of your problems too, is like not doing what's right, but meeting a deadline that may be an artificial deadline. So we do these computer chips and we're testing them in smaller sizes, right? Typically we would do a size 10. All right, well, those started working and they worked pretty well. Now imagine sizing it up to a LeBron James size 18. Okay. Ooh, all right. Maybe that was a little bit of a mistake and an overlap and a gap. We had not done that before. We had not done a full game. Ooh, that was a big mistake, right? You're getting hot, you're getting sweaty, you have electronics in your footwear. Those two things don't like each other very much, right? So oversized, enormous 285-pound human beings slashing and cutting at a very fast pace, brutal on the technology. So we missed that. Now, one of the most interesting parts of the story is data, and you guys know this really, really well now. This is like 2012. Who owns the data started to become a fight. If I'm LeBron James, that's my body. I should know that. And maybe I'm not thrilled that I'm not running as fast as Kobe Bryant in this game, and I don't want that published to the world. So maybe I'm going to say you don't have access to my data. The NBA started saying, hey, these are our athletes. We should own the data. The Olympics said we should own the data. NBC said we want to own the data because we want to broadcast this live as people are watching at home. Everyone started fighting for control over the data. What winds up happening? No one wins. We're not able to present that data to anyone. This did not happen. We had already planned on this being an enormous success. So this is like one of the final parts of the failure. Sometimes it's best to test and learn at a smaller scale. We decided it would be a brilliant idea to make 1 million of these basketball shoes, 1 million, because this is going to be huge. Everyone's going to want this, right? Let's make 1 million. And what do you have? The chips started failing. About 50% of the chips failed. So now you have a product recall. I mean, I'm getting into like so many details on how this failed, but good lessons for me on, oh my gosh, these were all breakdowns in following kind of a standard process. And so maybe some of those lessons can, help you in your development when you're thinking about this in the future.
What an awesome story. And I think also just a really great segue into my next question, which is just the fact that we're living in a rapidly changing environment, both from a technological perspective, but also from a cultural perspective. Can you share a little bit about how those factors influence your philosophy on innovation and design and how you think about tackling complex, hairy problems, or what we've been calling wicked problems?
Yeah. This is another, like, okay, we went from like one of my biggest failures, and it's like a big public failure, to maybe one of the biggest successes. So this one's easy for me to talk about. We'll keep an eye on time so that I don't talk like for 45 minutes. But this, I think, is a really fun one. So this started with setting a big, hairy, audacious goal. So I'm in Nike Running at the time. This is around 2015. And we said, we had an innovation summit coming up, and they're asking us, what's the future of running? Now, at the time, we had like a little bit of a bumpy road, especially with the purists, with really, really good runners. We noticed in marathons in particular, we were losing the shoe count. We were getting about number 9. So like Asics, Brooks, and New Balance were all beating us in marathons. So we said, what if we tried to set a really big, hairy, audacious goal of breaking the 2-hour marathon. At the time, the marathon world record was 2 hours, 2 minutes, 56 seconds. And there were lots of physiologists and people in the world that said human beings probably just can't do that. They can't break 2 hours, at least not for another 30, 40, maybe 50 years before we can kind of catch up to that. We hated that answer. And we sort of challenged it. We said, well, what if we broke down the problem and tried to make it simple? Could you get to that like really amazing moment where Roger Bannister is able to go out and set a world record, break the 4-minute mile? For those that know the story, you know he actually had pacers with him, 4 friends that ran the laps with him and sort of paced him, kept him on track, and then he was able to break the record. And that started getting us thinking like, I wonder what Nike would do if we were back in 1956 working with Roger and trying to help provide footwear and apparel for him. So we went out, we talked to some of the best athletes in the world. Nike has really nice budgets sometimes, so we fly to Kenya. We're able to work with them in the Rift Valley and see them run, which is epic, by the way. Lots of them ran to school every day. It's part of who they are. And you just get this rhythm of, okay, how can we enhance your capabilities? We started to break the problem down. So research, we've got a great Nike research lab. So we started breaking it down. 2 hours, 2 minutes, 56 seconds is a 4% improvement. 4% improvement starts sounding like kind of realistic, right? Well, what if we could get 1% from the footwear, 1% from apparel, 1% from the course itself, right? Maybe we go really flat with the course, no hills, no wind. Maybe we take a Tesla and project a green line on the course, telling you exactly where you are every moment of that 2-hour marathon. And then let's get into the athlete and the psychology itself. Can we pump these athletes up to feel so good on that day? And maybe we even give them a 3-day window. Maybe they're able to race on a Saturday if they want to run on a Saturday, if they're feeling really good, or if they want to run on a Friday or a Sunday, we'll be flexible enough to work with them so that they can optimize. And we'll do all of the physiology too. People run the best at around 47 degrees, so you don't overheat. So let's find a place that's a really flat course and let's make sure that the temperature is perfect, right? Okay, so 1% on footwear, that starts sounding very realistic. That turns out to be about 1/4 of an inch per stride. 1/4 of an inch per stride starts sounding very realistic. So we go to the innovation team, we start working closely with them and say, hey, what do you got that really helps propel you forward? Maybe there's some new foam that is really bouncy, really great energy return. Turns out there's a new Zote foam that we've been able to invent, but there's some major problems with it. It's really expensive. Well, we don't care about price, right? We're trying to set a world record here. So that doesn't matter. It's kind of squirrely, so you can't really manufacture it at a big scale. Well, we don't care about that. We'll just make 5 or 10 of them for our top athletes, and maybe that will work. You know, and we'll like handcraft them, and we'll do kind of everything that we need to do. And maybe, all right, we're looking for that little bit of propulsion. Maybe we put a carbon fiber plate in that acts like a track spike, and we've never done that before. We'll do that for the road and for a full marathon. And we did all sorts of crazy things, like maybe we have little needles on the outside of the outsole to grab asphalt and give you a little bit more traction. We did pretty cool apparel with this as well. We created aero fins that actually made it more aerodynamic, similar to a golf ball, so that the air would flow around your body that much easier. We gave them arm sleeves, again, so that it would be even more aerodynamic than skin. So like, let's get all of our teams, 50-something people, all working on like a 1/4 inch here, a 1/4 inch there, and all of this starts to add up, right? So cool design sketches and working through the process. This wound up being the final product. This is Eliud Kipchoge showing off his shoes. I won't give away the ending, but you can imagine that this is one of my favorite stories to tell, right? Because this is a good thing. You notice how tall these shoes are, right? Maybe you remember like the last couple of years, these super shoes have started to become more and more popular, but like really jacked up on the height. This whole thing compresses and propels you. It's about 11% energy return on that product. You kind of see the carbon fiber plate in there, and then you see this large Zoom bag. That's a tensile fiber bag. And again, it is like a trampoline. It just gives you a lot of bounce. So I think the next slide is maybe the video of the final production of how everything kind of comes together on that moment.
Bring him home. This is history unfolding on the streets of Vienna this morning. It's a Saturday run like we've never seen before. Listen at the noise, the crowd getting right behind him. Goodness me, 300 meters to go. He can see the finish line here. Neil Armstrong we had on the moon in 1969. We had Roger Bannister, the 4-minute mile 65 years ago. Edmund Hillary, the first man to climb Everest in 1953. We have 1 minute to go. Eliud Kipchoge is on his way here. This humble farmer who used to run 2 miles to school every day and back. He used to go to the nearest town on his bike to sell milk at the local market. And now, through hard work and discipline, he's pointing. Come on, he says. Eliud Kipchoge has the hand of history on his shoulder. He has less than 200 meters to go. Eliud Kipchoge, let's keep an eye on the clock. Into the final 20 seconds. Eliud Kipchoge. Whoa, on his shoulder. What?
Pretty amazing moment, you know, when it all kind of comes together like that. So, I mean, one of the pieces of advice that I would have for this group is don't be afraid to set big, hairy, audacious goals. It can really make a difference. It can really pay off. That's what we need more of in the world. There's plenty of like little imitators, and you can incrementally, slowly make something a little bit better. We went from number 9 in the marathon count to number 1 in the marathon count, like almost overnight. People were scrambling to grab these shoes. Even if you're a 3-hour or 4-hour marathoner, you were looking for any competitive advantage that you could get, and this was helping you get there.
Amazing. I love that sentiment of a mix of ambition as well as just feasibility, really being realistic about how you can get there. I know we have 2 minutes left, and I want to be, before I open it up to maybe 1 or 2 audience questions, could we end on a little bit of career advice? Do you have any words of wisdom for our students who are interested in having a positive impact on the earth, leaving it better than how we found it, without compromising on quality or effectiveness or financial viability or innovation?
No, I think that's great. I mean, I grabbed a couple of things just to sort of put down, and these might sound like things you've heard in other classes or in business books or those sorts of things, but I do think that they're really very, very true. If you can be a lifelong learner, both of my parents were teachers, professors at Cornell University, so it sort of taught me at a very early age, like keep asking questions, keep pushing yourself forward, don't get stagnant. The more you can do there, the better you're going to be overall. I would also say do everything that you can to empower others and lead with empathy. I mean, I don't know how many environments I've been in where someone is like cracking the whip or they're pounding the table and yelling at people. I just have not seen that be a really good strategy, especially as we start to move forward in the world. Understanding where people are coming from, listening to them, and then you know, working together to try and create, I'm going to skip to number 4, win-win scenarios. I think there's so many people in the world that sort of think about the world. Even me in my younger years, I used to think about wins and losses. Oh, I won that argument, or I won, like my design got picked, so I won, right? Don't frame the world up that way. I think if you can get to win-win scenarios, I want to understand where you're coming from, where I'm coming from. Maybe we can merge the best of our ideas together. The more you can get into those win-wins, the better it is for everybody. I mentioned fail fast forward. Don't do what I did on the Nike basketball shoe, the ESP, right? Like learn from your lessons. Always be questioning yourself as you're going through that route. Don't assume that you've got like the perfect answer. Have work-life balance. This is really easy for an old person to say, right? You guys are in Sloan. You're some of the hardest workers on the planet, right? So it's hard to do this. But if you can have that balance, Quick story too, like I'm at a soccer game with my kids. I bump into somebody who winds up having a more sustainable technology. And like this work-life balance winds up like helping me on the work side of things because I wasn't at work that day, because I was enjoying a soccer game. And think big and be bold. You guys are some of the best in the world. Don't settle for anything less. Challenge where we're at in the world and make it a better place.
Thank you so much, Sean. I think we are officially out of time. So I just want to say once again, we are so glad that you were able to spend some time with us today. I also want to give a shout out to your team here, Rebecca and Julie. Thank you guys so much for all your help. Jen and the whole Sustainability Initiative gang, wherever you guys are, thank you. And Michelle and Marissa, Design Club, thanks so much for all the behind the scenes work.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Great to see you. I'll linger for a couple minutes if you've got questions.